Afternoon, we continue work of Ukraine Crisis Media Center, and we are here today in order to understand one treason, what its anatomy is. So this is a story of Denis Bihus, our colleague, who in August made public a research. There were some specific decisions we are going to speak today, and a lot of people, instead of helping citizens get proper assessment of real estate, some people earn money on this, on a good idea, on the overall system of assessment of real estate. And here we are speaking about problems, and we discussed the decisions, what can be done. So we invited people, Maksym, Nefyodov, First Deputy Minister of Economic Development and Trade of Ukraine, Agia, Zagrebelska, Government Commission, Oksana Velychko, Director of government-civic initiative Together Against Corruption, Mykhailo Serebryakov, lawyer, Director of Regulation Project Section Together Against Corruption, and Bihus, journalist, the person who can say about the cost of property and about the cost of it on paper and in reality. So the question to you is simple. These good ideas, they provide opportunity to earn to some people, and what should be done to provide access of the citizens to this database. And we all know that Ukrainian government and Ukrainian politicians, they like to speak in the media, but we should follow what they do after this. Maybe on the 1st of October or the 1st of December, we should understand that this situation is resolved. What should be done for this? So, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to start with a different topic. On the whole, the story about the intermediary between the entities that are involved in this, the administrators of the database. So the appearance of these intermediaries, it is described by some commentators that they said that this is Prozoro, and this is one of the topics why I'm here. I would like to use this opportunity and say that this is not Prozoro. And we should not name it Prozoro in order to legitimize this. And that's why, because the system, it works differently, and you cannot tell about us. So this system is created. So some information should not be made public about the application to the tender. We do not want that this information be traded, and we create a divided infrastructure that consists of many tens of platforms, and they know only information that is appropriate for them. So the risk of leakage of information is reduced, and the system proves it during 3 years. And also the system provides services to thousands of clients, and explanations and training seminars are provided for them. And the state shouldn't hire new employers for this. They just outsource these services. In the sphere of assessment of real estate, the notary download the information on the site, and people understand the difficulty in this work. This is just the transfer of information, and in the process of transfer information, some private entity appears and it provides it to the state bases. And I believe that this is too much. And for me, this is really unpleasant, and I believe that this is manipulation when they connect it to Prozoro or say that the tariffs are the same as in Prozoro. Why not in Dynamo Kiev, for example? This is a great team, and they take money for something, so maybe we should provide tickets to Julio Iglesias, who will perform in the Palace of Sport. So this is manipulation concerning business process and technical manipulation, and I believe we should avoid this. And the legislator provides such a mechanism when between the state database and the client, some private companies appear, and the Ministry of Economy, we cannot comment. This won't be correct about whether the Verkhovna Rada is right on this, but we believe that this should not contribute to the increase of prices for the operators because it influences business climate and people pay more, and the participation in tenders, this is voluntary, and here this is additional tariff on each operation on real estate. If you want to sell a flat, you do not want to buy the intermediary, but you pay additional money, and this is not in the framework of the regulation and the decrease of tariffs and payments we carry out. So this is de facto forceful action, and this is administrative service, and it should be regulated by law. Unfortunately, it is not done. So we face de facto the situation like this, and we believe that the tariffs for the use of these intermediaries, for the work of these intermediaries, they should be economically grounded. And we believe they should they should cost 10 times less than we have it now, and they should not create additional financial burden on people who buy or sell property. So simple calculations. We can assess some indicators. So the number of transactions in the country, it is difficult to calculate them, but we see that the sum is about 500 or 900 million a year. So these are additional expenses, and also the ministry believes that these expenses should be regulated and reduced to economically grounded levels. According to our colleagues, this is about 100,000 hryvnias a day. And when we are speaking about the decrease of costs, how it should be done, whether it should be the provision of the Cabinet of Ministers or some legal acts. As I understand, this should be regulated by the State Property Fund regulations, because the tax code provides the authority to State Property Fund, and what Cabinet of Ministers can do in the situation is to provide the order to order the entity to adopt these tariffs, or maybe to establish the principles of formation of tariffs, or the threshold for these tariffs. So now I give the floor to our colleague. Please tell us, if we have the private platform, can I or my colleagues create a firm that can work and get more than 1,000 for this operation and to properly regulate the market. So legally it is possible, and Antimonopoly Committee carries out the verification of these electronic platforms, and we want to find out why it happened so that in a month from the introduction of the fund regulations, only one electronic platform was formed, and they provided the documents, and in 2 months they went through all the procedures of authorization, and the fund provides the maximum number of days. 74 days is maximum, and on the 30th of July, 2 other platforms submitted, and in 2 working days they got this authorization. Then on the 22nd of August, 1 more platform submitted the documents, and the procedures were carried out, and we have 4 platforms now. And the major issue, why happened so that only 4 platforms are technically and technologically and legally ready, that they have all the documents to carry out these activities. And the second issue is connected with the number of platforms. If the first was authorized and the cost was 390 hryvnias, and this money was paid by the assessor and 780 by the notary, and then 3 platforms appeared, and due to the competition between these platforms, especially price competition, and the cost should have reduced, but it became maximum for the real estate that exceed 100,000. So now the price is 1,020. So the number of platforms increased, but the number of costs didn't decrease. So we see negative signals from the civil society, journalists. We have some documents that we got in the framework of verification, and it shows some similarities in the appearance of these platforms and in their behavior. And journalists said about it, and our money program said that they had similar codes, similar agreements. And at the beginning of the last week and during the last days, they changed the cost, and they had the same price at the beginning of last week. So for different participants, they have many similarities among themselves. And also why other platforms do not enter this market. The problem may be that this is difficult to say, it is difficult to say that this is the market, and maybe there can be some aspects and non-transparency of the procedures, and investors are detracted from this because of such situation, and we try to find out why. And if we find that this is market and the service of the platform has some value, so there may be some new participants, and it should these should be independent participants, and it should decrease the price. And as a result, due to competition, if we have many such platforms, due to competition, the price should decrease to the level that is economically grounded, and this is ideal. Why it is not so? This is the issue we are searching answer for, and in October we plan to end our verification, and I believe that we will be able to inform the public about our results soon. So we have 2 approaches. First, due to special regulation of the fund of state property, also to attract new participants to the market. And now I give the floor to our next colleague. Please tell us about the options, how to stop this system, because 800,000 hryvnias a day someone earns from sending the files. So I will tell you that this is a scheme, and the Prime Minister addressed us in order we provide our view and to provide our opinion how to resolve the situation. And we studied this situation in detail, and this is a corruption scheme, and this is a simple scheme. And Anton Yatsenko, the deputy of Vybranovskyy, is the author, and the budget code, when it was adopted, so the article on the assessment of real estate, it says that electronic platforms are used in the assessment of the real estate. So they created such a model. Why several steps are used? The law does not envisage in what way it is done, whether it is done for pay or for free. So then the favorable conditions should be created in order that the platform register, and private platforms are registered. And I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the basis of the assessment, the state assessment of property, and the module for the evaluation of the price is state one, but the intermediary is private, and they just increase prices without any grounds, and they provide maximum prices. So many people are hungry in our country, and some people just pay 800,000 hryvnias each day for intermediary who send information from one place to another in files. So I personally I'm really concerned, and I believe that this provides discreditation of the government, and we are thinking about it for 2.5 months. We try to search the ways, and this scheme, it continues to earn. Maybe they want to buy the votes of the electorate due to this money. So the fund says that this is the economic entity, and they say that this is just their way of operation. But we have two events with the fund that are not completed. The basis about all state property that would allow to see what property is leased on what tariffs, and the fund cannot carry out this task for 2 years. So they have 0 steps in this. They are really poor. They do not have money for the employees. They cannot increase the number of the employees to work more efficiently. But they allow the platforms to earn 800,000 a day. So they would complete all the tasks if they were allowed to earn that the state earned from these services. And we provide our we will provide our recommendations, and we work with our partners in Secretariat of the Cabinet of Ministers jointly with Maksym and the Assessors, and we work in several directions. First, in order to improve the module of this assessment, the fund opened, you mean the state module, how? Because some people deceive this module. We want to improve this module. So the fund kept the bases closed for a long time. Then they opened it, and then they saw the data that some prices were decreased in this. And I would like to give the floor to my colleague, because he works in the sphere of the decision making. What can be done? What are those recommendations? Because theoretically we may pay attention to this budget night. We hope we don't have it, but we hope that there won't be such amendments. But what can we do now? So you outlined the first way. This is a legal way. They introduced some changes to Article 72 in order that these platforms appear. What we had previously, this basis existed for a long time, and information was entered without any payment, and the assessors didn't need any mediators, and this service could have been provided for payment, but the fund didn't do this, and the fund didn't need any intermediaries, and we understand the reason. We maybe we can remove all these platforms altogether. They were not needed, and they are not needed now. And also there is a threat that if this success develops, these platforms, parasites, they may appear in other services as well. So we are not corrupt people, but the authors of the scheme, they will do it, and we want to see what the state will do with the scheme, or what it will do with those who made the scheme. Also, at the by-legislation level, you understand that not all in the hands of the fund. So there is an order of authorization that appeared, and also the order of the support of the database. So two these orders were provided, and if we won't have them, we would have direct authorization without intermediaries. And at the bylaw level, we could establish the threshold and to reduce the costs to the economically grounded levels. And last year, the Cabinet of Ministers could vote for the changes to provision 358 on free of charge provision of information, and we didn't have these platforms then, and the law states that the platform and the assessor, they are the same entities, and if one establishes this policy, the other can do it as well. We can implement this until the platforms are cancelled. So this is the question of political will, and the Cabinet of Ministers, they can resolve this question if they want it to be resolved. And what about the timeline? Should we introduce it at once, or should it take some time? 1 second for development, 1 second for publication, 1 month it should be on the site of the ministry that registered it, and the regulatory service, and the collection of proposals, and also discussion between the ministries and the Cabinet of Ministers. So maybe it will take 2 or 3 months. So maybe till the end of the year. So we give the floor to our next colleague. How to avoid in this situation the real problem that we really have? So the decrease of the assessment cost, and all the system was built in order to avoid this problem, in order not to throw the child with the bathwater. You know that when you have good intentions, you may and health. So I would like to tell you what Ukrainian assessors want. We want the budget to be filled and actively, and the scheme that was introduced with the adoption of these electronic platforms, this is the corruption, and it should be removed, and also the decrease of price. Many assessors understand this. In 2014, when the system of tax assessment was ruined and all the assessment were carried out in 10 or 15 companies and all other assessors were not able to do it, and some provisions were not adopted. Why? Because we asked in the provision that the reports were verified and the prices should be market prices. It was not included, and all the assessment starting 2014 could not be verified, and through the bodies of control they provided applications to and the code didn't envisage this, and the cases were ruined, and the situation was really disturbing. And the assessors, they prepared proper documents in order to make situation more controllable. All the documents were prepared in 2015, 2017, and in spring 2017, the documents were so everything was regulated, and the documents should have been sent for voting, and in order to establish proper control and proper evaluation, and then the officials and the funds were changed, and these documents were rejected, and the new documents were submitted. So about the situation that we have in Ukraine on the whole, about the assessment of the taxation of the citizens. So there are some good ideas that we should tax our people, but people do not want to pay such taxes. Why? What is the problem? Before adoption of the tax code in 2010, the taxes, for example, the difference between the two sums, the margin was taxed, so the sum, the body of the sum was not taxed, and now we all pay the overall sum, and we pay taxes from the sum, and we now are in delay for 15 years, and there should be proper cadastre assessment. So if someone bought a house or a flat when prices were really high in economic crisis, then all prices fell down, and when someone wants to, those people, they pay huge taxes. So in the whole world, in the whole civilized world, and we aspire to be in the civilized world, the laws say that the property that was bought by a citizen, the citizen paid the taxes, and I pay only from the difference, from the I pay only from the profit that I got. So the schemes we are speaking about, the assessment and the platforms that were adopted, these are all the schemes because our legislation in 2012 and the group of deputies, they introduced changes to the law of the property assessment and to some other legal acts, and they rejected state regulation of assessment of property, because previously there was a council of assessors, and 50% of the fund and the state body, and 50% of assessors community. And after this, the council was cancelled, and some criminal cases were started against these people, and state regulation was rejected. So in Ukraine, we should change the concept of assessment, and the tax on property should be changed, and the assessment activity should be changed, because fiscal bodies should be involved, and the tax on property should be done based on market prices, and statistical data should be included, and the contracts on the individual property, and the assessors should carry out this assessment, but there should be indicative prices, and only the difference should be, so the income should be taxed. So as an assessor, with the appearance of this platform, what service do you get? I do not get any service. Our colleague said that the report is downloaded. For the first 3 months, even this was not done. There was only electronic table, and it only provided information about some premises. Then it transferred to the module of the base. There they verified the indicative, and according to legislation, it should be public and online, and it should be visible, and it is not visible. Now they have only Excel table. Then whether this indicative goes through or not, then you should pay 510 hryvnias, and sometimes assessors pay 4 times, and then this report is not downloaded. Now, 3 weeks ago, if the module is does not show that this is not proper assessment, so, for example, some gas blew up or the property was damaged, so these facilities will cost less. So at the end of October, maybe we will ask Oksana to provide some report. And what about the funds regulation? And do we have the order on about this on the site of the ministry, on the site of the cabinet of ministers? And what about the parliament, in order that it won't repeat it in the next budget? I do not have big hopes for the fund, because we, during our government report, we will provide recommendations to the Prime Minister. We will ask for the political will, and the cabinet of ministers should resolve this on their level, and the law may appear, but this situation may continue. Do you have questions? Maybe you understand the situation. Okay, thank you for participation, and I hope that at the end of October we will get more information what to do with this treason that we were speaking about in detail today. Thank you.